isn't funny, Amber.
Would you like to play a game, Tara?
Doors unlocked. All doors locked. Doors unlocked.
Hello?
It's happening. 3 attacks so far.
Aloha.
Do you have a
This
gun?
is Trinidad the Island Man, your Island Man, coming to you live once again from beautiful Hawaii here on the island of Oahu, bringing you, yes you, the best movie reviews on the entire island of Oahu. And yes, this is Trinidad the Island Man, your Island Man. And last night, Thursday night, opening night of the 5th installment of the Scream franchise. I went ahead and I saw it. So far it does have a fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's kind of a low fresh, and it could go either way. But without further ado, remember our rating scale: shock a thumbs up. It's good to see, I recommend it. Shock a thumbs down, it's junk, I don't recommend it. And for Scream 5, essentially, just called Scream at the movie theaters, just like the very original one, it is a shock a thumbs down. Oh, now, let me just say that maybe I'm not the best reviewer to talk about the Scream franchise. Now, I do enjoy good horror movies. I do enjoy slasher movies. Friday the 13th, the Halloween series, you know, things like that. You know, Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, the classics, basically. Gosh. But, you know, something that new horror movies just seem to have lacked. I mean, and it's true that, you know, sometimes they say that it's like, oh, well, you know, the horror genre has gotten more elevated nowadays. And they even make that case in this movie, talking about, like, you know, the Jordan Peele movies, Get Out and all that stuff, and Us, and that it's more cerebral than just your guy with the knife running around slashing up people. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, it's more cerebral, and yeah, it's good, but that doesn't take away the joy of some of those slasher movies. And now, you know, everybody enjoyed the first Scream that came out by Wes Craven, I believe. And, you know, that's the one I saw. I saw parts of 2, but I just couldn't get into it, and I didn't follow any of the rest of the franchise. But this latest one, especially with returning characters of David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Neve Campbell, back from the original series, in this one as well, along with a whole new Scooby Gang, as you would call them, thanks to, you know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer and that terminology. You know, but you don't really care anything about these new people. And I certainly didn't care about them. And there's not really much there to care about, as many are just there for mere moments and then they're gone, you know. You know, which is often the case in these kind of slasher movies, you know. You know, they're here one moment and then they're gone, and that's kind of what they're there. They're the cannon fodder, and which is as it should be. You know, because, you know, you want to keep your main stars, and then they want to keep you guessing, well, who's the main star? Is the main star the killer? Is the main star going to get killed? Is it, you know, since this is the 5th in the franchise, are they going to do something totally out of convention and just kill everybody? And, you know, it's like, well, that's what I wanted to see. I wanted, you know, to see how they were going to invert this trope, which the Scream movies have come to be known for. Again, like I said, for the very first movie, it was innovative and creative. It turned the standard slasher flick of those early 80 horror movies on its head, defying convention, and even came up with, setting up its own rules. Well, we know this happens in a horror movie. This is basically a horror movie we're in as these characters. Let's, try to think about this smartly and get through this alive. But as the franchise continued to go on, it became more and more of a character of itself, even as the film itself was panned and lampooned by such movies as the Scary Movie franchise. Especially 1 and 2 are my favorites. 1 is a direct lampoon and solely based on Scream, the very first movie. And it's, the best of, the comedy series. Just as Scream is the best of the Scream series. Because of these rules that it creates and following the rules to try to find out who the killer is and try to survive this slasher flick. In this one, just as became, evident in the other Scream franchise, the other 4 movies, the other 3 movies that followed the original up until this 5th one, basically they were all self-aware, having known that one happened and became very popularized in social media, etc. And then a whole bunch of copycats followed, the Ghostface mask guy to take over. And it's like, and for a while he was, Ghostface was like, okay, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees. He was kind of up there, but then he faded away. He became a caricature of, the horror genre. Something that this franchise wanted to totally avoid. Just becoming comedic and not even scary. And that's what takes place in this movie, unfortunately. And it's not by desire. You get really bored with the new youth characters, that they try to bring in. They're trying to be smart. They, you see clips of the original movie, etc., or the movie version of the first film as the franchise. They call it Stab instead of Scream, as they look back into the franchise of these killers going around. And hey, we know the rules, we know what's going to happen, and so that's the twist. And then the killers know the rules too, and so they try to skirt around the rules. They try to this is going to be the twist ending, and then it's really this other twist, and they try to keep you guessing, but honestly you already guessed it way from the beginning, because it's like, wait a minute. There's only a few people that this could be. I mean, unless they were just going to do it way out of left field and really defy convention that, hey, it's nobody anybody knew, and it was totally this other guy just came out of nowhere and said, hey, I'm going to be Ghostface. But no, it turns out very much standard like the other films, where it's somebody the group knows, again, multiple killers, harkening back to the very first movie, and it's and it's just so predictable and so packed full of jump scares, that they're trying to, really lacking any cinematic buildup of suspense. They just go for the cheap, like I said, jump scares, where you open up the fridge and then they close the door, and behind the door is nothing. because it's like, oh, they're going to expect the guy there, and then they open up the pantry door, and then there he is. It's like, oh, okay, you know. It was kind of cute to watch. The first 5 minutes of this movie as it opens up kind of mirrors the Drew Barrymore famous scene of the first one. You know, how she survives this character, because she does survive. It's like, well, how'd she survive? She was stabbed, like, you know, they say like 6-7 times. Okay, and we find out it's like, well, okay, a little bit of a spoilers. Since it's somebody the character knew, they were trying to draw in these other people, including like Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox's character, to come back to the town to reinvigorate, because this is all the, just like the movie is trying to do, is to reinvigorate this franchise. They are trying to reinvigorate the stab movies and franchise in the movie itself, kind of making fun of itself, being self-aware of itself in this movie, which becomes a shortcoming of this movie, and as far as I can see, making it very you know, tongue-in-cheek almost in that fact. But even so, stabbing a young teenage girl 6 or 7 times, even if, okay, this is, you know, it's like, oh, we're going to use this to draw, we're not really going to kill her, but we're going to draw these other people in because they're concerned about her, so they come back to the town so that we can get them. But we'll not kill this girl. I'm sorry, you stab somebody 6-7 times, unless you're like a surgeon and really doing this, you know, well thought out, and you're very well trained, like I said, a surgeon with a scalpel, etc. While the person is struggling, she's probably going to die because she's twisting and turning while you're stabbing her. You are probably going to nick something very important and she's probably not going to survive. So your plan goes out the window. So right away, this is kind of, it's like several of the characters, it's like, what? I thought they were dead. They were stabbed like all these times and, you know, bleeding to death, you know, alone would kill them from loss of blood. But yet miraculously by the end of the movie there, it's like, oh, he survived, she survived. It's like, what? How? I don't believe it. So right there, it's just thrown all out of the window. Even though it's like, well, that was part of the plan. They wanted him alive. It's like, you couldn't have planned that. You know, things go wrong. You know, you know, you nick an artery, you're dead. So, okay, but all that even aside, this, again, just follows the basic tropes that we had seen in all the other Scream movies, or at least heard about from the other Scream movies. You know, although, you know, especially the first one, really doing nothing new, and even brings in several of the scopes and tropes of other horror movies. They even reference Michael Myers and the Halloween films in this movie, you know, as if it couldn't get any lamer, as, oh, we're going to try, you know, this, you know, really trying to pander to restart this and reinvigorate it, this version of Scream, this horror movie, just like the Halloween movies did, trying to bring it back from the dead, per se. And it just utterly fails, again, with a shock of thumbs down. Mainly because you don't care about these characters. They really didn't set them up very well. You don't know any of these characters. The characters that you do know and then maybe you've loved and you've followed, at least from the first movie, you know, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Nev Campbell come in, you know, mainly between the second and third act. So it's not focused on them. And when they do, you know, come on screen, all the attention and focus shifts to them. So what little you might have kindled for these new characters goes out of the window right away, and you're no longer interested. You're wondering why we weren't following more of a story with these other characters. And it just comes down to, well, then they probably would have had to pay these characters more. Not that they didn't pay them already a lot to come back to this tired franchise that many had walked away from, between the last few movies. So yeah, nothing more I can say about this is that, this was released by Paramount, a Paramount movie like the other Scream movies. Probably best just to wait for it, on streaming, on Paramount Plus, to catch it there. If you're really in love with the horror genre and slasher flicks, you're just not going to feel satisfied with this kind of movie. Despite them trying to reinvigorate the franchise, despite them catering directly to, the fan base by bringing back 3 of the major characters, Courtney Cox, Neve Campbell, and David Arquette. Most of the interest for me was when David Arquette and Courtney Cox were in the scenes together, knowing that they had been married during, the first movie and a couple of the other movies, and then had their split and divorce. I was more interested, like, ooh, how are they going to play off one another? And, they do have a quick scene together, and it's kind of heartfelt. I was more interested, the tension, the real life tension between these actors than their characters in the movie, which, I guess takes away from the movie. But to me, that was a little bit of the draw of the movie, to see those two together on screen, against one another. But even that is not enough to adhere your interest for the full, hour plus of this movie. And again, just a bunch of other forgettable characters that I'm not even going to mention, the actors, because it's like, some kids, basically. I mean, they try in this movie. There's a girl like Neve Campbell, younger Neve Campbell character like from the first movie that it's kind of centered around, and they try to make her the main character, the hero, but you really don't have any caring or interest in it. And there's a little bit of a twist with her character that they try to draw you into, have some feeling for her. But overall, again, a shock and thumbs down. It just comes off very boring and we've seen it all before. All right. So again, this is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man, without any spoilers for this movie. It just falls flat, dead on arrival with the Scream franchise. They should have just let it lie, instead of trying once again to reinvigorate this series. They really need to come up with a better overall scope and idea for this movie. I just don't see how it's going to continue. Again, they might try a part 6 eventually, maybe just a made-to-video movie or streaming. That's probably the most success we'll see for another entry into the Scream franchise. All right, again, shock and thumbs down for this Scream Part 5, essentially. Don't waste your money to see it at theaters. Just if you're interested, if you're a fan of the other Scream movies, and I do mean all of the other Scream movies, and you feel you really gotta see this movie, just wait for streaming and see it there. All right, thank you so much. This is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man. Again, giving Scream, this latest iteration, a shock and thumbs down. Not worth the effort for going to the theater, especially with the Omicron running around. All right, thank you so much. Mahalo and aloha.